we just become numb across life. We just become metrics and quantifying life and just, another checking boxes, like you say. We're always trying to ace the test. We're always trying to make our definition of life successful in the things we do, not on who we are as a person. So that was one of the things that you mentioned as a teacher that left you frustrated of the education system, that it didn't work for you or your students. And I would like to get to some of the themes that revolve around your time as a teacher that made you feel this way. How did you ultimately break free from this system?
Yeah. So, one of the reasons why I wanted to become a teacher was because like I said, I love to learn from different people. And the more I spent time with kids before I became a teacher, I realized that they're like learning machines. And we often talk about what we're teaching them and what we're teaching them, but really it's all that we're learning from them. Right. And so I was very excited to be surrounded every day with the different kids, different personalities. They're excited about everything. They're still not, numb, like you mentioned, and they're just curious about everything. And so I was just very excited and excited to sort of shape them and help them, shape this new generation that's going to be really driving civilization forward. And so that to me was a mindful way of spending my time. The problem was that when I actually became a teacher, and it actually was a little bit before that, but let's just go into when I was already a teacher, I started to realize that kids spend so much time in a classroom with us every day, and it's their most precious years, right? It's their childhood years, and I just didn't think that we were spending that time correctly and
Mm,
or to the best way that we could. Um, I look at kids and I see what makes them unique and what makes them, excited and what they're really good at. And it's like sort of the opposite of what we're training them to do in school with all the structure and the parameters and the lesson plans. And I feel like learning is a lot more open and a lot more natural and not as structured as we make it in the school system. And so when I started to see that this excitement that they have in their eyes for learning was starting to fade
mm,
as we impose all these lessons, as certain learning becomes forced, and when we remove all the choices and the autonomy that they have. And, it's like we're removing something that they're already so good at. Like, and instead of making it better, we were making it worse. And even though I was very aware of this, because I had to follow all these parameters and focus on the tests and like all this bureaucracies, I couldn't really do the things that I felt deep inside that would help them become happy, successful individuals once they left school. And so I was very frustrated for years
yeah,
because I could feel this, but I didn't really know what to do. And then ultimately I realized, um, I think I'm better off leaving the classroom in search for learning opportunities that kids actually want to be part of, learning
mm,
opportunities that are driven by the children and that actually prepare them with the skills that we know that they will need in the future. And I'm not talking about content because content is constantly changing. And as long as we teach them how to learn, they can pick that up on their own, right?
yeah,
I'm talking about like those soft skills that I do see the importance of having an adult helping them and guiding them in this process. And those are the things that I didn't feel like we were teaching in school. For example, how to, instead of, in school, we teach them to, we remove points every time they make a mistake. And that teaches them not to want to make mistakes, right? Because they get penalized with that bad grade that then goes on their report card, high stakes that hunts them for the rest of their lives. Of course, what's the lesson we're teaching them? Fear making mistakes. When in reality, mistakes are part of the learning process. It's how you learn to pick yourself up and, keep going and get to that insight that's on the other side. It should be feedback that helps you realize the things that you haven't mastered yet because you're a kid. You're not expected to know everything. This is a
yeah,
time where you're, learning a lot of these skills. And so really befriending mistakes and befriending failure was not something we were doing in school, and something that I'm like, this is very important. And so, or this whole notion that, we're sort of the fountain of wisdom and
mm,
imparting all this knowledge and from lesson plans that oftentimes I was like, they lack so much context and relevance. And I don't know when they're going to use this. And kids feel this. They,
mm,
we're asking them to learn all this stuff. And they're like, well, why? When am I going to use this? And I had no answers. And that was very frustrating because I'm like, I'm wasting their time and I'm wasting my time. And so I didn't really find, and this is just, I'm scratching the surface, right? Also, a lot of the things that we did in school did not really translate to the real world. I'm like, this whole notion that kids have to wait until they're 18 to contribute to society is mind boggling for me. Because like, what? Like, we just expect them that after 18 years of being confined in this like make believe places, like schools where, there's like learning going on. And then we put them in the real world and it's like you're expected to know what to do. How? How are they going to know what to do if they didn't really have a chance to do anything until they become 18? And so I feel like we should involve them from the beginning and have, sort of like forget about this myth that learning happens in school. Learning happens everywhere. We're surrounded by it. It happens in the real world. So how can we create learning experiences that resemble the real world? How can we give kids real problems to solve that they are actually invested in, that they want to? And then they're going to need different things in order to solve these problems. And that's when you start to introduce them to the different tools and the different subjects that are going to help them solve these problems. They start to see the connection between what we're asking them to learn and how they're going to use it. That's where the curiosity starts to spark, because they're like, wait, I need this in order to solve this. And so it becomes a more natural way, an effective way of teaching and learning. And so I ended up leaving in 2019 without really an idea of what I was going to do next, but I wanted to explore a lot of these questions that I had, a lot of these things that I was seeing in the school system, and try to see what was out there. And so fast forward a few years, and I don't know if you want to get into this now, but I'm kind of working in the alternative education space, and I'm in this really innovative ed tech company that's we're trying many different things, starting from this idea that, how do kids learn? What are the skills that they're going to need in the future that they're not learning in school? How can we use their time productively? How can we get them excited to learn? How can we empower them so that they own their learning experiences and make it really challenging? Because of course we need to challenge them, right? But at the same time, making engaging and fun. And so that's sort of what we're doing now. And we have a long way to go, but I really enjoy seeing kids in this environment where suddenly they're in charge of their learning.
Wow. Yeah, we will definitely touch on synthesis and how you're connecting with DARPA techniques, which is just, when you listen to DARPA, something serious is cooking there. And I
Mhm.
remember that when you just